Welcome folks to our third virtual story time. Matin va, that's Scottish Gaelic for good morning, or if you're watching this in the afternoon, Feskerma, good afternoon. Today, we have some dragon tales for you. But first, let's wake up our hands and warm them up on this cold, somewhat spring morning with a clap, 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 a clap, 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 a clap, clap, clap. I wake up my hands with a clap, 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 and I wiggle my waggles away. I wake up my feet with a stomp, 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 a stomp, 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 a stomp, stomp, stomp. I wake up my feet with a stomp, 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 and I wiggle my waggles away. I wake up my head with a nod, 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 a nod, 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 a nod, nod, nod. I wake up my head with a nod, 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 and I wiggle my waggles away. I wake up my eyes with a blink, 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 a blink, 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 a blink, blink, blink. I wake up my eyes with a blink, 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 and I wiggle my waggles away. I wake up my hips with a shake, 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 a shake, 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 a shake, shake, shake. I wake up my hips with a shake, 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 and I wiggle my waggles away. One more wiggle. I wake up my tummy with a poke, 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 a poke, 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 a poke, poke, poke. I wake up my tummy with a poke, 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 and I wiggle my waggles away. One more good wiggle, you guys. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. Who's ready for a story? Are you ready for a story? All right. So we have some dragon tales, as I have said. So our first story is one of my favorites. It's called Dragon Quest by Alan Bailey, illustrated by Wayne Harris. Dragon Quest.
Hey, you! Yes, you with a book. Up, we have deeds to do. Bold deeds, deeds so daring that songs will be sung for 1,000 years. Come on, you'll be a hero, a great warrior, an epic knight. Here, carry my lance, my shield, my stew pot. Our quest? Ah, yes. But first we must pass many perils out there. Awful perils, dangers to set your teeth chattering and turn your hair white. And after we have fought through them all, then we must face the worst of terrors. Green ice gleaming in the eye, claws flashing in the smoky sun, fire curling from its mouth. Now, there's a grand quest. Waiting for us is the last dragon. But the dangers start now. In these shifting sands lie the bones of noble knights, perished with their swords undrawn. We must watch for the sting of scuttling scorpions, the 100 bites of the banded wasps, and we must always be ready for the lightning strike of the deadly desert snakes. Can you see the desert snakes? What about the scorpions? How many are there? Ah, we have crossed the desert. Of course, I knew we would. I am too fast for any snake. I am so fast that even my own shadow cannot catch me. There was no need to be afraid. But there are dark dangers in this tangled forest. Here are spitting toads, poisonous webs, ghost owls, wolves, goblins. And worse, 3 dark witches coil evil spells through the forest. Listen. You can hear the howling of doomed dragon fighters trapped in the witchery of the trees. Be brave now. But you see, we have cleared the forest. There was no need to be afraid. I am as strong as 10 elephants, brave as a score of lions. Be careful now of the whispering abyss. Fanged werewolves will leap out at you, thorned demons will nibble at you, and if you fall, a fright of vampire bats will drink you dry before you reach the bottom. Shh. We must be quiet. A double-headed troll lurks in these hills, and a double-headed troll can never be defeated in battle. It commands a flight of vultures, an army of warrior gnomes, and a stampede of centaurs. Oh! Cowardly nag! Whoa! All right, we don't need the horse. Now see, we're out of troll country. There was no need to be afraid. A double-headed troll cannot be defeated, but it can be outwitted. If the double-headed troll had seen us, I would have asked to speak with its head. Then the heads would have fought about which of them is the head. You see, you are very lucky to be around such a smart dragon fighter. Ah, Glass Mountain, dragon country at last. No, don't worry about falling rocks. Always look up at the sky. If the dragon is flying and sees us, we are doomed. There is nothing you can do about a flying dragon. Right. This is it. The top of Glass Mountain. No dragon can hide from me in a cloud. Pass me my lance and shield. Prepare for the mighty battle. Why? What do you mean, why? You don't want me to fight it? You just want to see a dragon to know that it is there? What's the good of that? What's the good of a dragon fighter who doesn't fight dragons? Never heard of such a thing. What? Nothing there. Can you see any dragons? Look to the glittering ice, to the polished sea, the shifting sands, the forest. No? No dragons at all? No dragons left anywhere. Nothing to do but go home. Can you see the dragon? Can you see the knight and his apprentice? His squire? Where are they? Atop of the dragon's head. But why are you grinning? That's the end of that story. What do you think happens next? I wonder. Was that a good story? I hope you enjoyed it.
Well, I think it's time for another song, don't you? Let me grab a drink of water really quickly. Now, on this cold, frosty morning, let's put 3 crows upon the wall. This is an old Scottish song called 3 Crows. 3 crows sat upon a wall, sat upon a wall, sat upon a wall. 3 crows sat upon a wall on a cold and frosty morn. The first crow was crying for his ma, crying for his ma, crying for his ma. The first crow was crying for his ma on this cold and frosty morn. The second crow could not fly at all, could not fly at all, could not fly at all. The second crow could not fly at all on this cold and frosty morn. The third crow fell and skinned his jaw. Ow! Fell and skinned his jaw. Ow! Fell and skinned his jaw. The third crow fell and skinned his jaw. Ow! On this cold and frosty morn. The fourth crow was not there at all, was not there at all, was not there at all. The fourth crow was not there at all on this cold and frosty morn. And that's all we know about the crows, know about the crows, know about the crows. That's absolutely all we know about the crows on this cold and frosty morn. Well done, you guys. Well sung, well sung. Are you ready for another dragon story? Well, spring is on the way, and this is a good springtime winter transition story. Good story for the transitioning of the seasons. Grab one more drink of water here. A long time ago, in a village far away, it was always winter. This village was in a little valley at the foot of a great tall mountain. It was always winter there. Now, at first, the village people didn't mind it always being winter. There were plenty of wonderful things about winter. They enjoyed playing in the snow, making snowmen, throwing snowballs at each other. They enjoyed going skating, going sledding. They enjoyed hot, steaming mugs of cocoa in front of the roaring fire and telling stories deep into the dark, long winter nights. Stories like this. But after a while, they began to get tired of the winter. What's more, food was running out and the firewood was growing short. What would happen when all the food ran out and all the firewood? The people were worried, so they went to see the mayor. Now, they all knew why it was always winter in that village. Because at the top of that mountain lived the Dragon of Winter. The Dragon of Winter was the reason it was always winter in the village. On clear days, you could see him there at the top of the mountain, curled around the mountaintop, the pinnacle of the mountain, fast asleep. But every once in a while, he would go out flying. And when he went out flying, it would snow and it would hail, and the people would stay inside and hear the cold whistling wind at the windows. The villagers went to see the mayor, and they told him it was his duty to go and talk to the dragon and to convince him to leave. The mayor was not a brave man, but he put on his boots, put on his warmest clothes, and he set out to climb the mountain and talk to the dragon. He climbed and he climbed and he climbed higher and higher, and the higher he got, the colder it got. The rocks were slippery with ice, and the wind whistled around his head. Finally, he pulled himself up to the top of the mountain. And there was the Dragon of Winter, fast asleep. Psst. Dragon, whispered the mayor, because you never tried to awake a sleeping dragon. Psst, dragon. So he tried a little bit louder. Psst, dragon. Me, 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 me. I think that dragon needs something a little bit louder to wake him up. Why don't we all shout, "Hey, dragon," on the count of 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Hey, dragon! What? What is it? Why did you wake me up? Well, dragon, said the mayor, the villagers have sent me to talk to you. They're tired of winter. Their food is running out, and their firewood. They want you to leave. Leave? But where would I go? Asked the dragon. The mayor thought for a moment. He said, well, what about the North Pole? There are polar bears there, and Santa Claus, and it's always cold. The dragon considered that. But this mountain is my home. I don't want to leave. And a great frozen tear rolled down the dragon's cheek. It fell from the sky and landed down in the valley, where it became a great frozen lake, narrowly missing one of the houses. The mayor realized he had to stop the dragon from crying. Otherwise, the whole valley would be one giant frozen lake of tears. The mayor knew that he had to compromise. Do you know what that word compromise means? It's a very important word. Sometimes you can't get everything that you want, but if you come to an agreement, you can get part of what you want. So imagine that you want to play with a toy, but your brother or sister also wants to play with that same toy. You can't both play with that at the same time. You need to compromise. So maybe the solution is that you get to play with the toy for a little while, and then your brother and sister get to play with it for a little while. So neither of you gets everything that you want, but you get a little bit of what you want. And that's a compromise. We're actually having to compromise quite a bit recently with the coronavirus for safety. So in this situation, the villagers all want the dragon to leave the mountain, but the dragon doesn't want to. So this is the compromise that the mayor and the dragon came up with. Dragon, said the mayor. Yes? What if you only spent part of the year here at the top of the mountain and part of the year up at the North Pole? That sounds fair, said the dragon. Yes, I'll do it. And with that, the dragon spread his great icy wings. Are you going right now? No time like the present. And off he flew. Well, the mayor climbed back down that mountain, and even as he climbed down, he could feel the earth beginning to thaw. The ice and the snow were beginning to melt. Spring was coming. When he got back down to the village, they held a great celebration for the coming of spring. It was a beautiful spring, followed by a glorious summer. But as the summer began to wane, it began to get cold again. They knew that the dragon was going to be flying south. Flying south for autumn and fall and the coming winter. But one day, they looked out the window and it was covered with frost. And the fields were white with snow. They looked up at the mountain and there was the dragon of winter, curled up around the pinnacle of the mountain, fast asleep. But they weren't worried because they knew that that dragon would fly back north again to the North Pole soon enough, and then it would be spring again. Well, the dragon didn't leave. Winter went on and on and on. There was no sign of the dragon leaving. The villagers realized that the dragon had forgotten his promise. "What will we do?" asked the villagers. So they went to see the mayor, but the mayor was too terrified, too scared of the dragon to go and talk to him again. The villagers despaired. What will we do? Without food and without firewood, we'll either starve to death or freeze to death. We're doomed. But then a little girl stepped forward. "Don't worry," she said. "I'll talk to the dragon." She went and she wrapped the red scarf that her mother had knit her tightly around her neck, and she set off to climb the mountain. She climbed and she climbed and she climbed, and the higher she climbed, the colder it got. The rocks were slippery with ice and snow, and the wind whistled around her head. Finally, she pulled herself up to the top of the summit, and there was the dragon, fast asleep. Suddenly, the wind ripped the scarf from around her neck. It tossed it high into the air, and it woke the dragon, flying right in front of the dragon's face. The dragon was terrified. He had never seen anything so bright before, or anything that was moving so quickly. "What is that thing? It's so fast, so bright, so red. It must be another dragon." And with that, the dragon spread his wings and flew off as far as he could and as fast as he could, heading for the North Pole. Well, the little girl retrieved her scarf from the top of the mountain, and then she headed back down the mountain. And even as she climbed down, she could feel it getting warmer. The earth was beginning to thaw. The ice and the snow was beginning to melt. Spring was on its way. When she got back to the village, they held a great celebration for the coming of spring. And all the children in the village made kites out of colorful pieces of cloth and sticks and string, and they flew them in the air. And if you ever visit that village today, every spring you'll see all the little children making their kites and flying them in the air. Visitors to the village think that the children just fly these kites for fun. But now, you know the truth. The children fly the kites to scare away the dragon of winter. Wasn't that a nice story there, folks? I hope you enjoyed that. Now, I've got a little bit of a treat for you here. You've heard my small pipes before, my bagpipes. Now, these small pipes are a woodwind instrument. That means that they're usually made out of wood, and they use a reed in order to make the sound. As the air flows through the reed, the two pieces of wood vibrate together like this. That's what makes the sound. So woodwind instruments require the movement of air through the instrument in order to make the sound. And that air is provided in my small pipes by the bellows. But there are other instruments other than woodwind instruments, and so I have a special treat for you. A friend of mine, the harper Dominique Dodge is going to be showing you her harp, which is a string instrument, and talking to you about how that instrument works and how that instrument plays. So I'll turn this over to Dominique Dodge for a couple minutes. Dominique, take it away.
Hi there. My name is Dominique and I play the harp. And there are harps in all of the countries of the world, but the music that I really love to play on the harp comes from Scotland and from Ireland. And I believe one of the stories that you all read today also comes from Scotland. And that one is from Shetland, from the far north of Scotland. I believe that's coming next. So I know also that you have a theme today, which is dragons. And so in a moment or two, I'm going to play you a tune about a dragon. But first I'd like to tell you a little bit about my instrument. As you can see, it has a lot of strings. And the way we play the harp is we pluck the strings like this. And you might notice that the strings that are really long down toward the bottom of the harp, they have a low sound like this. And as the strings get shorter, the pitch gets higher. So up here, it's very high. You also might see that there are colors to the different strings. And these colors are like a map for the harp player. So they help me find my way as I'm playing. All of the red strings are C, all of the blue strings are F, and that way I can navigate. I have 34 strings on my harp, so it's a lot to keep track of. I also have these golden levers up here. And those of you who have seen a piano might have noticed that a piano has white keys and it has black keys up above. What I have on the strings here is the same as the white keys of a piano. So if I want to get the black keys, which we call sharps and flats, I have to play with these levers. And here's how they work. I play a string, and when I put the lever on, it shortens the string and makes it higher in pitch. Down, up. And you'll see me changing levers as I play this next tune for you. So this is the boy's lament for his dragon, and I hope you enjoy it.
Thank you, Dominique. That was lovely. Top of life. Dominique is a harper based in Jackson, New Hampshire. And she gives lessons, and we have a link to her website if you want to check her out. Really beautiful harp music. Thank you very much. And I also wanted to talk about where that story, The Dragon of Winter, came from. I took that from Midwinter Folk Tales by Taffy Thomas. And Taffy Thomas is the Storyteller Laureate of the United Kingdom. The story probably harkens back to Chinese dragons, which had a great influence on weather in Chinese mythology and Chinese folk tales. Thank you for that wonderful story. And now we have another dragon tale. The Dragon Storeworm, retold by Teresa Breslin and illustrated by Matthew Land. This is a traditional tale from Orkney, far in the north of Scotland. The Dragon Storeworm. The Dragon Storeworm was the very first and the very worst dragon ever to exist from the beginning of time. It was absolutely ginormous and almost completely covered Scotland from the top to the bottom and all the way across from side to side. Soon after the Dragon Storeworm arrived in Scotland, it had eaten whole herds of sheep, drunk dry most of the lochs, and burned half the crops with long flickers of flame that shot out of its mouth. It promised to stop if it could have just one delicious young person to eat every day, starting with the king's daughter, the Princess Jim de Lovely. The king was very upset. He announced that he would give his sword, his kingdom, and the hand of his daughter in marriage to anyone who could free Scotland from the Dragon Storeworm. Princess Jim de Lovely said, "Papa, the sword and the kingdom are yours to give, but my hand belongs to me. I will choose the person I marry." Many warriors came to the king to inquire about his sword and his kingdom, and after that, about the Princess Jim de Lovely. They went to do battle with the Dragon Storeworm, but they never came back. Sometimes a stirrup or helmet was found, which the Dragon Storeworm had spat out on the shores of the loch. Although Princess Jim de Lovely was sad for these warriors, none of them had touched her heart. Then one day, a boy called Azipattle wandered along the road. Azipattle was a bit different from the warriors who rushed around fighting. He liked to sing and sit by the fire making up stories. He was walking and singing by the castle when Princess Jim de Lovely looked from her window and thought, "Aha!" Azipattle glanced up and saw Princess Jim de Lovely, and he thought, "Aha!" Azipattle went into the castle and said to the king, "I've seen a girl in your tower who has an honest, interesting look. I'd like to talk with her and share my stories." Princess Jim de Lovely stepped from behind a curtain where she'd been listening and said, "I'd like to meet you too." Azipattle held out his hand and Princess Jim de Lovely took it in her own. "Hold on a minute," said the king. "First, Scotland has to be saved from the Dragon Storeworm. Whoever does that may marry the Princess Jim de Lovely." "Well," said Azipattle, "the Princess Jim de Lovely should marry whom she chooses. But," he turned to the princess, "would it be best to get rid of the Storeworm before we chat about our favourite stories?" "That would be very helpful," said Princess Jim de Lovely. Early next morning, the Princess Jim de Lovely and Azipattle crept into a tiny boat on the loch near where the Dragon Storeworm was sleeping.
When the storeworm awoke, it opened up its great jaws, yawned mightily, and took in a huge drink. The tiny boat was swept along as the loch water rushed into its vast mouth. Princess Gem de Lovely and Azzypaddle rowed as fast as they were able, past the sharp teeth, over the dreadful tongue, and down the throat of the monster. Burp. They hung on as the boat was battered every which way, until finally they reached the storeworm's stomach. Princess Gem de Lovely held the boat steady as Azzypaddle took a knife and dug a hole in the flesh of the storeworm. Next, Princess Gem de Lovely opened a jar containing a glowing peat from the fire at the castle. They blew on the peat, not once, not twice, 3 times, to make it blaze like a live coal. Then they rammed the peat deep into the hole in the stomach of the storeworm. Very soon the fire from the peat began to hurt the storeworm. As it got hotter and hotter, the storeworm started to roll and writhe. The more its stomach burned, the more it howled. It screeched and screamed, then tried to get rid of the burning in its belly by gagging and spewing. And so, all the water and the tiny boat with the Princess Gem de Lovely and Azzypaddle in it flowed out of the storeworm's mouth and back into the loch. As the little boat heaved about, Azzypaddle stood up. Princess Gem de Lovely handed him the king's sword, and Azzypaddle scalped that storeworm, the most tremendous blow on the side of its head. Azzypaddle struck with such force that the storeworm was sent rocketing up into the sky. Azzypaddle kissed Princess Gem de Lovely 3 times and asked if she'd married him. Princess Gem de Lovely kissed Azzypaddle 7 times and decided that she would. And so they lived long and happily together in the country of Scotland. And as for the dragon's storeworm, well, Azzypaddle gave its head such a clatter that its teeth flew out, and they splashed all around Scotland, forming the islands and rocks. The storeworm's body went north, landing with a terrific thud at the top of the world. The sea hissed and boiled for a while, but then the cold Arctic Ocean froze over the gigantic lump, and it is now the country that we call Iceland. Every so often, an enormous belch of smoke and fire bursts from the earth there. Some people say that this is a volcano erupting, but it is really the dragon's storeworm snoring in its sleep. Was that a great story? And I love that last picture there of Azzypaddle and Gem de Lovely playing some tunes together by the fire. And they lived happily ever after. The end. Well, folks, that's it for our stories. That pretty much wraps up our story time, but we wanted to leave you with a craft that you could do at home. So I'm guessing, hopefully you have plenty of toilet paper, which means that you have toilet paper rolls. And this is a toilet paper roll craft. You can make your own dragon blower out of one of those toilet paper rolls. It works like this. You can blow some fire from that dragon's mouth. So this is very easy to make. If you have green paint, you can paint one of these toilet paper rolls, green or red or whatever color you want your dragon to be. And if you have pom-poms, you can glue them and googly eyes, pom-poms for the noses, the nostrils. I'm going to add teeth, and I used crepe paper and tape to make the fire.
Now, if you don't have all of these supplies, if you don't have glitter and such, you can also use construction paper and cover the toilet paper, or you could just cover the toilet paper with regular paper and use markers, or just use markers right on the toilet paper roll. You could cut out eyes out of paper and glue them on. You could use sequins, if you have sequins, as the nostrils. You could think about all kinds of clever things that you could use for the flames. They don't have to be crepe paper. They just need to be something that's light enough to actually move in the air. So ribbon would work. Little scraps of toilet paper that you color with markers would work, probably. Light pieces of paper would work pretty well. So I'm going to encourage you to experiment and make your own dragon blower at home. Now, would you like to hear one more tune on the small pipes? I thought you might. All right, one more tune then to send you on your way. Let me just strap on my bellows here. This is a tune called Jenny Nettles. And a Jenny Nettles over in Scotland is what they call a daddy long leg spider. Jenny Nettles. 1, 2, 3, 4.